Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari twitched under braking into Variante della Roggia, and in that split second, the entire Monza grandstand seemed to stop breathing. It was the kind of moment that strips racing down to its rawest form, where one tiny slip could end everything. Yet Hamilton didn't falter. He caught the car, steadied it, and carried on as if the twitch was part of the plan. On the timing sheets, it showed him running in 6th place, but those numbers alone don't tell the story of what really unfolded at the cathedral of speed. What mattered wasn't the position, it was the way he was driving, the way the Ferrari SF25 seemed to bend with him instead of against him. And for once, Nico Rosberg, his fiercest rival and sharpest critic, had nothing to say. The silence from Rosberg said it all. This wasn't just another recovery drive. The telemetry data revealed something far greater, that Hamilton and the SF25 were finally moving as one, unlocking a level of control and stability that could change the trajectory of Ferrari's season. What made that moment even more powerful was how the race had begun for Hamilton. He didn't start from the front, or even near it. A grid penalty had pushed him back to 10th, leaving him with the odds stacked high against him. Ferrari's own simulations had painted a grim picture before the lights even went out. Overtaking at Monza on the medium tyres would be brutal. Traffic would eat into tyre life long before the pit window opened, and strategy risks loomed large. But Hamilton didn't let the numbers dictate his race. By the time he exited the second chicane, he had already gained 2 places, moving with the kind of precision that set the rhythm for everything to follow. Each move was measured, every defence carefully timed, nothing left to chance. And the contrast with earlier races was striking. In Hungary and Spa, he looked like a driver still wrestling with the SF25, struggling to trust the car beneath him. At Monza, that tension had vanished. The trust was there. The connection was visible. He wasn't managing the car anymore. He was commanding it. And that shift made every lap feel like the start of something different. From the very first laps, the numbers began to tell a story that went far beyond what the eye could see. Sector 3 at Monza, the part of the track where Ferrari's own models insisted there was no margin to be found, suddenly lit up in Hamilton's favour. He was 0.2 quicker through Ascari, carving space in a place that was supposed to be closed. In the Lesmos, he carried 1 km/h more minimum speed than Carlos Sainz on the same tyres. A small detail on paper, but a massive sign of confidence in reality. This wasn't a driver managing the car, this was a driver bending it to his will. By lap 12, the gap became even clearer. Hamilton's average lap time was 0.3 faster than Charles Leclerc's, despite battling heavier traffic. Normally, traffic shreds consistency and ruins rhythm, but Hamilton turned it into an advantage. His lift and coast zones were shorter, his brake traces sharper, and his energy recovery through Variante Ascari more efficient than Ferrari had seen all season. The telemetry confirmed it. Not only was he smoother, but he was also regaining energy at a rate that gave him 1 extra push lap compared to Leclerc. In a race defined by fine margins, that hidden weapon mattered. Tyre life told the same story. Across an identical stint length, Hamilton reported 3% lower degradation on his front left tyre. That may sound like a minor statistic, but stretched over 30 laps at Monza, it equates to more than 1.5 seconds of preserved performance. In a midfield fight where every fraction counts, that was the kind of advantage teams dream of. And it didn't come from luck. It came from Hamilton's balance of aggression and restraint, knowing exactly how much grip he could take without overloading the tyre. Put all of it together: sector times, apex speeds, ERS deployment, tyre management, and the pattern was undeniable. Hamilton was no longer just surviving in the Ferrari SF25. He was mastering it. Every lap reinforced the same truth. This was not desperation, it was efficiency. It wasn't chaos, it was control. For the first time since joining Ferrari, Hamilton and the car were in complete synergy, and the data proved it beyond any doubt. The transformation wasn't only visible on the stopwatch or in the telemetry, it was also heard over the radio. Earlier in the season, Hamilton's messages had sounded clipped and frustrated, often carrying the tone of a driver who felt disconnected from the machine beneath him. In Hungary, his voice came with resignation as he questioned tyre choices. In Spa, there was more defeat than direction, as though he was speaking from the outside of the car rather than from within it. But at Monza, that tone was gone. What came through the radio instead was calm, analytical, and assertive. A driver in full command of his race. The clearest example came when Ferrari missed the chance to undercut George Russell. In the past, Hamilton might have lashed out, but this time he didn't. Instead, his message was measured. The pace is there, we just need to be sharper next time. No blame, no panic, just leadership. Those few words carried more weight than any lap time because they told the team that Hamilton believed in the car, in himself, and in them. For engineers who have spent years haunted by hesitation and doubt, it was exactly the balance of critique and belief they needed to hear. Even in technical feedback, Hamilton showed his shift in approach. Coming out of Parabolica, he didn't just say the rear grip felt better. He gave Ferrari exact load percentages, comparing his first stint to the pre-race simulations. It was calculation, not emotion, guiding every word. And that calm authority over the radio proved as decisive as any overtake on the track. What made the performance even more striking was how it shattered the long-standing story Nico Rosberg has told about his old rival. For years, Rosberg has painted Hamilton as fragile under pressure, a driver who could be rattled when the environment turned hostile. But at Monza, that narrative collapsed in real time. Watching from the commentary booth, Rosberg admitted he had never seen Hamilton feed off pressure like this. Instead of cracking under the weight of expectation, Hamilton seemed to draw energy from it, turning the intensity of the moment into raw pace and control. His body language behind the wheel told the same story. Earlier in the season, he looked tense, as though he was wrestling the SF25 into submission, always reacting, always fighting. At Monza, that tension disappeared. The way he guided the Ferrari looked fluid, composed, almost like a dance. Every input, braking, turning, accelerating, seemed to flow naturally, as if driver and car were moving to the same rhythm. That kind of ease doesn't come from chance, it comes from total confidence. For Rosberg, who built his reputation on exposing Hamilton's weak spots, this was unsettling. It wasn't the finishing position that silenced him. Sixth place doesn't normally stop the headlines. What silenced him was the method, the resilience, the control. Rosberg found himself without ammunition, watching a driver who was once accused of emotional fragility now thriving on chaos and pressure, transforming it into one of the most complete performances Ferrari had seen all year. Monza has always been more than just a racetrack. It is called the Cathedral of Speed for a reason. And on that Sunday, the Tifosi were its choir. Every lap, every overtake, every flash of red on the main straight was met with a wall of sound so loud it seemed to shake the ground itself. Hamilton admitted afterwards that the energy gave him goosebumps. He compared it to Brazilian football stadiums, where the roar of the crowd feels like an extra surge of horsepower carrying you forward. For a driver who has raced in front of packed grandstands at Silverstone for nearly 2 decades, that admission carried weight. This was something different. This was Ferrari. The pressure of Ferrari's home crowd is usually a burden, one that can crush even the best drivers. But for Hamilton, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like fuel. Every cheer seemed to sharpen his focus. Every chant seemed to steady his hands. Instead of being isolated inside the cockpit, he looked carried by the people in red, as though their belief was flowing into him. Even Rosberg, who rarely gives Hamilton such credit, compared it to Nigel Mansell at Silverstone in the 1990s, when the fans seemed to lift him beyond the car's limits. To hear Rosberg draw that parallel was telling. It meant Hamilton had found the same emotional synergy with the Tifosi, a connection that could change not only his own story in red, but Ferrari's future as a team. The numbers at Monza did more than prove Hamilton's pace. They exposed a new battle brewing inside Ferrari. For the first time since joining the team, his lap times sat right on top of Charles Leclerc's. The gap was barely 33 thousandths of a second. So slim, it meant that pure speed was no longer the deciding factor between them. From here on, strategy calls would dictate who finished ahead, and that changes everything inside a team like Ferrari. Leclerc has long been Ferrari's reference point, the driver who knows the car's quirks, who carries the weight of years in red, and who enjoys the loyalty of the Tifosi. But Hamilton brings something different. An aura built on 7 world championships and a reputation for turning teams into title machines. And history shows that once Hamilton establishes that presence, garages tend to bend toward him. It happened at Mercedes, where strategies began to tilt his way and upgrades matched his preferences. At Monza, you could feel the early signs of that same shift beginning in red. Ferrari's rivals noticed too. McLaren's analysts were already recalculating their undercut models for Suzuka, wary of a Ferrari driver who could stretch tyre life further than expected. Red Bull quietly noted Hamilton's ERS efficiency gains, aware that if Ferrari found even a fraction more energy recovery, the SF25 could become a serious podium threat on high-speed circuits. These aren't just observations, they are signs of respect. The bigger picture is that Ferrari, a team often accused of volatility and missteps, suddenly looks steadier with Hamilton at the centre. His leadership, his data-backed authority, and his refusal to be rattled have given Ferrari something they've lacked for years: an anchor. And in a championship fight where every point matters, that anchor might be the difference between chasing and truly competing. On paper, a sixth-place finish might look modest, the kind of result that barely stirs headlines. But at Monza, the symbolism was seismic. What mattered wasn't the number of points, but the way they were earned and what they revealed about Ferrari's future. That single drive suddenly pulled Ferrari into striking distance of second place in the constructors' standings, a position that only weeks earlier had felt out of reach. Momentum is sometimes more valuable than raw pace, and Hamilton's performance proved it. Consistency, resilience, and efficiency can swing the balance in a season where just a handful of points separate the teams fighting behind Red Bull. And with tens of millions of dollars in prize money tied to those positions, the stakes are not just about pride, but about resources that shape the seasons to come. The rest of the paddock felt the shift. McLaren, Mercedes, and even Red Bull were forced to recalculate their strategies, knowing Ferrari now had two drivers capable of scoring heavy points on any given weekend. What looked like a simple sixth place was in fact a warning shot, a statement that Ferrari is no longer just surviving but building momentum. And in Formula One, momentum changes everything. And so the question lingers long after the checkered flag at Monza. Was this the true rebirth of Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, the moment where everything finally clicked? There are two ways to see it. On one hand, it could be a genuine turning point, the start of a second act in his career that builds toward a title run in 2026. The data, the control, the leadership, it all points to a driver who has stopped adapting and has started owning Ferrari's future. On the other hand, it could have been a perfect storm, a unique mix of strategy execution, the roar of the Tifosi, and emotional synergy that lifted him for one unforgettable weekend, but may not be repeated in the same way. That's the debate now dividing the paddock and the fans. Was Monza just a fleeting glimpse of what could be, or was it the true inflection point that will reshape Ferrari's trajectory for years to come?